We're very happy to be here, and over the past few days we've heard amazing talks given by terrific people, and some of them were dealing, like the one from Tony itself from Australia, who was talking about how we should start thinking out of the box and maybe approaching new methodologies in order to convey technical messages. And another one was the magnificent Justina talking about e-learning and saying that the future of learning is now. So we're kind of going to talk about these two things together and how they combine. But before we talk about that, I think it would be rude not to introduce ourselves. So I think you should go first.
So I'm Nuno. I'm working at Feedzai as a technical knowledge manager, which basically means nothing. But I was basically the first person at the documentation team at Feedzai. I'm there for about 2 years. I've been a technical communicator in some capacities for the better part of the past 7 years. And I have a technical background. So engineers can write.
As for me, I have no technical background. I'm a literature student. I studied English literature. And I was always passionate about reading and writing. So I guess that's what the writing parts come from. The technical one comes from me having a very, let's say, annoying older brother that was a developer. And he kind of forced me to like technology. So as everyone was opening their Microsoft Paint and having fun when they were 12 years old, I remember opening my Linux Debian console to start GIMP, which actually was kind of useful in the future when you become a technical writer. And also, I was a teacher for many years, and before dedicating myself to technical writing. So when I started as a technical writer, I remember that people came to me with problems that I need to solve, but I had literally no experience because before becoming a technical writer, the only thing I knew about it was the Wikipedia article I read before the interview. So when they were coming to me with questions, I would also give probably unorthodox responses. And one of them was that manuals are okay, they're the backbone of all of our work. Everything is based on that, is where you can browse for a reply, like for something you need for an answer. But you also have other ways of conveying information like audiovisuals and training, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And there is a great difference in talking about something in a Medium article that you will read and you may forget. It's my experience as a teacher. I remember that my students, when they had to read a textbook, they would retain, let's say, 20% of the things they read, while when someone explains it to you, even though it's a very pretentious keynote, they will get most of it. So I think that there's different ways of conveying information, and a good way of doing it is by teaching people instead of just dumping all of the information there and making them consume it. But we needed to build the training, and that's
basically what we've been tasked with since the beginning. So the company was growing, and I will present a little bit about the company. The company was growing, but the company never had anything related to training. And there we were, a team of technical documentation, and they were like, just build the training. You guys know more about this than we do. Just make it work. I don't care. And what the company had was basically a bunch of PowerPoint presentations that people thought, okay, if we bring in some guys from marketing, if we put some nice-looking graphics here, people will learn out of this. And that's the way we've been doing as a startup. That might do the trick. But, you know, it's your problem now. And at this stage, by show of hands, who here knows Feedzai? Yes, no one knows Feedzai. So at that stage, and still now, the company is growing a lot. And the company had been building a reputation as a cool technology, as something that's really new and really edgy in the market. And on the other hand, we have this mission statement that behind that, there's a lot of technical complexity and technical sophistication in our product. So on our side, to build something that lives up to that expectation, and that has the same level of technical sophistication that the company has was a huge challenge. It was something that was really, really scary for us. But because at the end of the day, what Feedzai does is protect real people. We protect their money, we protect their identities. So this has a real impact in society. So we started asking questions. Who will this be for? So who do we must train our customers. Okay, that makes sense. We need to train our partners. Okay, because we are growing and we need to scale, and that's the right way to do it. We need to train our delivery engineers because they will be going to customers and delivering our products, our projects. Our product engineers because the company is growing and there are lots of teams in engineering. So no one knows the entire product from end to end. Data scientists. Okay, more people. Fraud analysts. Everyone that joins the company. Freaking Batman, because he fights fraud and crime. Soap attendees, because soapers rock and would be great fraud fighters. The Pope, I think, at some time someone said this, and while we're at it, why not? And the list would go on and on and on and on. In different scenarios, so where should this work? Okay, this should work when you go to a customer and you gather a bunch of those guys in the room and you have to train them. But this also has to work for people that's, for example, a new hire that needs to learn at his own pace during onboarding. So this kind of adds another layer of complication on top of all of this to solve something that wasn't really clear. Because some people, they said, okay, I want PowerPoints. PowerPoint presentations do the trick. But some other guys, especially the delivery engineers that would have to go in front of the customer, they knew that there had to be a better way than PowerPoints. There had to be a more sophisticated way that made their lives easier, that some way they wouldn't have to just send an email with a PowerPoint or have it some kind of shared drive and make it look like it's not really that professional. So we set out to do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, and before everything, we wanted to make something simple, because when your intention is to teach someone how to do something, in the end you want it to be simple and understandable. So we scratched out some principles that our training documentation had to be. One of them was that it had to be easy to follow, which is something that was also covered in the SOAP conference. It has to be easy to follow because, as I said, the unique goal was people to understand our products, how they worked, how to interact with them, and how to teach people how to use them. It also has to be traceable, so that it can be versioned and you don't have delivery engineers downloading the current PowerPoint of that time and then sharing it 3 months later and it's already outdated. So we want to be something that is up to date and can be refreshed constantly. We wanted something that was standardized, that was actually following the principles of the industry, and that would actually make sense, because when you want to teach someone something, you want it to be logical to them. You want them to expect what they're going to see. You don't want to just innovate for the sake of innovating. And you want it to be organic. I just love this adjective. I think it makes a lot good in like a conference. And it also had to be purposeful. It has to be well defined, and knowing that when the people enter those training materials, they will know what they will get from there. And of course, it has to be marketable. Because as Erin said yesterday, what we do is value. And by creating well-structured training materials that someone will actually get something out of it, you will save money to companies. So it's something you can sell. Instead of having a delivery engineer going to explain the documentation of how manual works and how you have to do it, you will have something that could be self-consumed and that would be profitable. And we wanted something other than PowerPoints. And it was time to build a proof of concept. And we did that. We decided to establish modules, and the modules will contain sessions. The modules will be self-defined, and they will deal with complete sections of knowledge. And then once all the modules are created, what you can do is group them by courses in relation to the people they're directed to. And we created it. And as you can see, it's not only an effort by the technical writing team. This implies delivery engineers that tell us what it needs to be told, what it needs to be taught. We also need UX people that would actually make up the platform and make it intuitive, not only in ways of documentation, but only in ways of how you navigate it. And we had very clear learning objectives. All courses should have an overarching purpose. Each module covers a well-defined set of features, and each session must ensure that the students acquire a list of skills and knowledge. That would mean that once they're finished with it, they will have the same as it was explained in the beginning. They will have the same output as what they learned they will have. And all of this was before we even started developing the content. And inside of the modules, as you can see, there are sessions. And sorry, and the sessions will deal with a linear story of what you want to convey. We will have different ways of consuming it. You can view it online. That would be useful for people in offices, or you can also download it if you have to give a training somewhere else and you may have no access to the internet. And also, it's UX that you can interact with, and you can mark the sessions are complete, and once it's over, you will have the progress that you've made. And we needed skills to do that.
Yeah, so we started evaluating tools and evaluating approaches. So we basically set out to let's use Reveal.js, okay? And this was kind of a cheat because I had already used Slidey in the past with Dita. So I knew that something like that would work. But Reveal.js seemed to be more modern and seemed to do the trick. So we basically are right now authoring the training content in Markdown. Reveal.js generates the nice-looking HTML presentations that you can consume from your browser. We have the styling, all of the styling of these sessions, of this content is done through regular CSS. Yes, our designers know Flexbox. And we have a website that has some automation to it, and some sort of customization and JavaScript that, for example, goes into the Markdown and pulls the learning objectives so that it can build something like Jorge showed before automatically when we build the training website. And all of the source content is stored and versioned in Git, and it goes through the same, basically, versioning and revision processes as code in the company. Oops. So going back to the goals that Jorge enumerated, what we really wanted to enable with all of this tooling and all of this, when we wanted to make it real, was that it would be collaborative and it would enable reviews. So it would not be an effort of just the technical documentation team because it would be very short. It would be versioned, so no more back and forth of PowerPoint files. It would enable customization because we knew that if we were to take the same training, the same sessions, the same content to client A and to client B, at least one of them would not be happy. So we needed to take that into account. And we also wanted to be visible and accessible, not only for customers or for potential customers. Let's imagine that someone says that, OK, Feedzai, show me a little bit more. And we could give them, create a user account for them and give them a link, and they can go through some of our training materials and see if it makes sense for them or not. And then internally, for new hires, here's the link. You already have an account. Go there and learn. but we never wanted to compromise the simplicity. That was our major concern since the beginning. People were a bit skeptical, right? You saw that image, guy not sure if. People were really skeptical at first. So how will this work? How will this be better than PowerPoints? How will this not be a complete mess and super complicated? But once we got the technical documentation skills, once we brought in a UX designer, once we brought in a front-end guy to build the website and the automation, and once we convinced one of our delivery engineers to actually help us with the technical knowledge and the technical specialization about the actual things we are teaching, all of a sudden, all of this made sense. And we had a prototype. Not only we had a prototype, we learned a lot of things along the way. So we set out with, let's create a very simple set of guidelines so we can give to people so that they, when they are developing this kind of materials, all of these materials at the end kind of look the same and kind of feel the same, okay? So rule number one, don't try to do fancy presentations. This is not about fancy presentations. This is about teaching someone that really needs to learn about the Feedzai products. If you want, we had a set of visual patterns encoded into the actual CSS of the presentation, so there's no way you can mess this up. So if you want to have vertical slides, on the left side you have an image, on the left side you have text, on the right side you have an image or a piece of code, you can do that. If you want to have an image that takes up the entire slide, you can do it. If you want to have a GIF that rotates 180 degrees and changes colors, you cannot have that. And small slides. So it's a step-by-step progression. It's supposed to be simple to disclose small amounts of information. If your slide starts to get too big, split it into two. Again, the first slide always talks about the learning objectives. We have to level set the audience. We have to explain what they are about to receive. And there's no need to use all of Reveal.js features. For example, there's one that looks really cool, that's nested slides. So for example, I could, instead of having a list here, I could have stopped here, and instead of moving forward, I would be moving up and down to explain this slide. Well, that's a bit too much for what we want to achieve, right? Let's just make it linear. And at the end, test it. Make sure that it feels right, okay? And an interesting thing that started to happen is we built this POC. Our delivery engineers started to take this approach to some customers that wanted training and that had training scheduled. And also internally, when new people were joining the company, and we've had, I don't know, for the past year, 5, 6, 7 people joining the company every week. So we started having some feedback, and this was really cool. So the feedback we had was obviously, this is amazing. This is a masterpiece. And it's the best training since training day, yeah. I cannot do a Denzel impression, if anyone can. Okay. But most importantly, people are actually using this. People are onboarding their teams with this. We've actually had that first on the top left corner. That's an actual quote. I had a delivery engineer, a colleague, come up to me and say, this is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I needed. This was what they wanted to move away from the PowerPoints, but couldn't really articulate. And we've had, that one was also very interesting. We've had a colleague that said that at a customer, he was doing a practical workshop, and he was live coding. He was teaching them how to build rules in our platform. And he was showing it to them and building those rules with the class. And as people were suggesting ways, and as he was making mistakes on purpose to make them learn, he was showing everything on the screen, live. And that one we didn't expect. But also very important is that they can go to the repository where all the content lives. They can ask for access. We will give them access. And they can just create a branch. And then we will have something called, a branch called customized training customer A. And that will have the base training, the base product training that the team supplies, and it will have all the customizations. If they want to move sessions around, if they want to create new modules, if they want to create new slides, if they want to remove the ones that are there. And all of a sudden, we have customized training. We have a way to customize the training for each and every project with a very little amount of effort. Of course, some feedback, it's also not very positive. But it's great because we have them, and we have that feedback, and people are actually using it. So when people join the company and they don't have this context, they will just go and say, where's the rest? Okay? Because there's so much to do that what we have right now feels very short. Also, some other people, and especially our engineers that know everything about the product, they will say, okay, this is good as an intro, but sometimes for some audiences, and especially if I want to train new guys on my team, I need this to be a little deeper in terms of technical content that we're showing. And okay, that's a very fair point, but we're not there yet. But, as I was saying, this opens a world of new possibilities for our team and for the company as an organization in general. So now anyone knows, and we did some work in raising the awareness that this now exists and this is now available for anyone at the company. So anyone has the tools to contribute to training materials and build their own if they need them. There is a common ground of product training materials that we provide, and also common ground in terms of guidelines. Like I was saying before, we expect, and we have been seeing that people are customizing this in a way that what comes out at the end looks really, really similar to something that our team, as technical writers, as technical communicators with some experience, would have done. We've created this common understanding of what is a course, what is a module, what is a session, why is it so important to have learning objectives, and why is it so important to think about this before we set out to actually implement the training. For example, in our team, one of the things that we added to our definition of done when we are documenting a new feature is actually go into the training materials and also update the training materials. If those training materials don't exist yet, we will at least think about how this new content will fit in with what we have already planned. So we will, at the very least, have new sessions with learning objectives. And most importantly, project teams now can customize everything they want. So what this has been enabling is a way for the company to scale their training operations in a way that feels very natural and organic. And in a way that the technical documentation team that up until 2 weeks ago was composed of 3 people. There's 5 of us now, but there was 3 of us for almost a year. This enabled us to not be the bottleneck. We could not afford to do everything else we have to do and still learn everything at the same level of technical depth that we would need to explain something the right way with training. And also, to add to this, less work to us.
But of course, this case is far from being closed, because as the company evolves and new products arrive and new features and new releases, we have more things that we have to do. And at the same time, there are still foundation things that we would like to improve, and there's always work to do. So this is our roadmap, and we'll get to it soon. So I'm going to deal with what we have now and what we plan to have in the future. For now, we have a nice-looking website that does its purpose, and it works well. It's intuitive. You can follow it easily, but it would be nice that all of the work that is put into the concept of training and documentation is also reflected in an UX that is more complex in terms of how it works, but not in how it looks. In terms of creating a new style that will be, as I said before, organic again. I just love this. And continuing to improve the way of navigating those modules and of learning everything that is there. We also have 9 modules implemented by now, and we have another 20 plus to go. As I said, we have various products and we have various features that come up with every release, and all of them have to be documented and they have to be completed. And in order to get a complete grasp of how the company works and how every single element of the company works, we have to continue working on developing new materials that will create a whole experience. We also have simple presentations for now. It's just something you enter, you read and you follow, and you will get an output of the necessary knowledge you need to understand those concepts. But we also want to complement it with exercises and solutions. And as Justina said yesterday, we may actually get some ideas from what we've heard in this conference. Maybe it's a good idea to start with the exercises in order to prepare the trainees to know what they're going to face, and in the end having another set of exercises and solutions so they can actually test if what they were expecting to learn was actually what they learned and if it's actually put into motion. For now, we also have static slides, and for me, I'm a person that I'm completely obsessed with not missing the train of today, and I think that is like dynamic content, like video or something that is interactive, is the way that the world works now, and it's not the way that the world works now, it's the way the world has been working for decades. And what we heard yesterday about PDFs and the static slides is kind of the same. I remember that when I studied, in order to understand Shakespeare or the history of the British Isles, okay, yeah, we went to the classroom, we read the notes, we read the books, but in the end, I think all of us went to YouTube to watch BBC documentaries or Shakespeare animated, and that's actually a way that will complement the way you study something, you learn something, and if you get it in written form first and then you get another way of presenting it, maybe it will click in your mind and you will get a complete solution for it. We also have slides in Classroom now. The way it works now, it works as a linear, as he said, presentation in which you have very well-defined materials and content that follows a path. But also I think that it's good to have that, but also it's good to have something that would not need the need of someone teaching it to you or you having to put all that attention into following it as if it was a classroom. So maybe because making something that is more self-service would be also good, like something that can not only be learned in your office desk or while you're being taught by someone, but also that you can learn resting on your neck, on your bed with your laptop in here and actually reading it and being self-service. And before we get to the question sections, you can feel free to contact us. If you liked our presentation, you can, I guess, double tap there. And don't forget to subscribe our lives or whatever. And you can also look for us on LinkedIn and contact us on those emails. If you looked for me on LinkedIn, please state that I'm from Feedzai, because my name was probably everywhere around the Americas and Iberian Peninsula, so it's not very useful. So if you have any questions now, it's the time we discuss them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Guys, do you have questions? Yeah, there's one question here in the front.
Yes, hello. I was interested in, you said that everyone can now contribute to the training material. So do you have any kind of quality process that does anyone sort of review the content that has been created? And the second question is also to do with this review, that do you write in English or do you localize anything in your content?
We write in English. And traditionally, our clients are proficient with English, so there isn't yet the need of localizing it. And to answer your question, yes. In terms of, and those tools that we have set up, for example, Git, the repository where all of the content is, it's very easy to integrate a code, a review mechanism. So we basically ensure that no one sends anything to the official repository before it's being reviewed. And in those reviews, there's our team, and we review it from the standpoint of language and style and how all of this fits and how all of this will be presented to the end user. But we can also include those delivery engineers, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that know what's going on with our customers and their real pains and what they need to actually learn. So we also include them in those revisions. And that's a cycle, right? Someone submits something to the repository. It's not accepted until all of these people approve. All of these people, well, it's not 10 people, it's 2 people.
Still, they all need to approve it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? There is one more question and 2 questions, actually.
Yeah, please do ask questions, because this is the first time I've ever given a talk, so I may have rushed a bit. So if you don't have something clear, please do ask.
So hi, first of all, it was really cool, and if it was your first talk, then I'm gonna just like lock myself in the room and never do talks ever. So congrats. I really liked your content creation guidelines, but I keep wondering, was it easy to make people follow them, and if not, how did you force them to?
It's easy when we have other types of guidelines for the documentation, and for the documentation it's very hard. But for the training it was super easy because we had the key people involved in the project, especially those guys from delivery. They hold a lot of influence in the company in these kinds of initiatives, and they are the ones that went and still go to customers and deliver the training. So that, I think, was the key ingredient to making people really absorb these guidelines. If it was just for our team, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, and I also think that, as I said, the manuals and the actual written documentation is the backbone of technical writing. And as people use it, they have suggestions and feedback. So you know what they expect and what they want to learn from that documentation. So if you rely on something that is already there and that is working, then you can translate it into something in a different channel that is training in this case, and adapt all the information you have there into a way that it's simpler, but it conveys all the message as well.
Cool, thank you. And I'm jealous of how well this went for you. So yeah, it seems really great.
Sorry, I couldn't listen.
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything.
I said I'm jealous of how well this went for you.
Thank you.
It seems really great. I've done e-learning before, and it just seems like a dream. So congrats.
Thanks. You very much.
Okay, we have one more question. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for the amazing talk and congrats on the smashing success of your project. Actually, I have two questions. First, do you measure the efficiency of your training? And the second one is, do you gather like any metrics of how much the training process has improved since you've like employed this approach, like as compared to the PowerPoint slides training?
Yeah, we don't have any metrics, so another slide for that, for the roadmap. But that's definitely something we want to do. And we get some feeling of how this improved the life of our delivery engineers, and most importantly. And for creating new content, I would say that it doesn't save us a lot of time because we still have to plan everything and build everything. But when they start to have these materials available and they know that they don't have to start from scratch, they can prepare a training in like 2 days.
Okay, thank you.
But this is just the feeling we have of talking to people. Of course, we need to gather metrics, and that would be very interesting, especially to prove, to actually prove the worth of all of this within our organization.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And as I say, as it evolves, we will also have a better UX that can collect the data from the exercises, let's say, and say what is the percentage of actually well-resolved exercises and things like that. So I think it's an organic. I love this. It's an organic procedure. Like will continue in time.
Any more questions? Okay, that's it. Thank you, Nuno. Thank you, Jorge, so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Ciao.